Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Navs Effect podcast. I am your host, Naveen Ganglani. We've got a good one for this episode. We're going to speak with Ray and Jason, my co film aficionados, and the friends I usually have on the podcast when there's a big new movie hitting the blockbuster screen. And, well, I'm recording this Tuesday night, Feb 27. On Monday, we were fortunate to watch the premiere of Dune Part 2 at SM IMAX SM Megamo, to be specific. So, of course, a shout out always to SM Cinemas and also to Warner Brothers for the invite to this amazing film premiere, amazing event. The film was, I don't want to spoil too much. This is going to be a spoiler free kind of review concept that we're going to do. We'll tell you more in a little bit. And you know what? I'm going to save my thoughts and also my rating for the movie towards the end. So I can be sure that you all will be listening up to the very end. Nah, I'm just playing. But anyway, before we get to the film section of this episode, and before I have Jason and Ray come on, I'm sure those of you who've been following our film reviews are familiar at this point with who the two of them are. I want to talk a little bit about some recent developments in the college basketball scene. Now, the one big news, I think this, yeah, last Friday. So I remember I was at lunch, catching up with some friends, and I get a message that Zain Mahmood had committed to the UST Growling Tigers. And I believe it was a day or two later that Renzo Competente, the former FEU Tamarao, also transferred to the UST Growling Tigers. He will do 1 year of residency before he's eligible to play in season 88. Zayn, on the other hand, is eligible to play season 87, 5 years. He's fresh out of high school in the United States. He's under the Phil Canada Nation umbrella, which is also technically under the Philam Nation umbrella in the United States. Zayn had been here for NBTC last season, also played for the Batang Gilas national team in a tournament recently, along with the likes of Jared Bahay and Seven Kagaten, Luis Pablo, and Jacob Baila, and all the standouts of that roster. Now, this was a big development for UST, in my opinion, because now I feel by recruiting Zayn, they get to play him alongside Peter Osang, their FSA, in the front line. Now, Osang isn't as tall as your other naturalized, or rather, sorry about that, foreign student athletes in the UAP scene. He's about 6'7". He's not as tall as like a Nagunane, not as big as like a Malik. But what's good about him is he has a combination, I should say, of size, versatility, speed, some shooting even. Pretty reliable free throw shooter, can hit the 3-pointer once in a while, can hit the mid-ranger once in a while. And the concern by making him your FSA, of course, is that you might be in a size mismatch against the other teams like the ones I mentioned. But now with Zayn there, UST gets additional firepower in their front line. Nico and I did a podcast recently where we discussed our thoughts about UST, why we feel they are the dark horse to consider as a possible finals contender, even for UAP season 87. I went as far as to say that I don't know if this is a hot take at this point, but maybe some might consider it that way. I feel they are neck and neck there with Ateneo for the third best team in the UAP basketball scene right now, behind LaSalle and UP. And Nico had Ateneo at 3 and had UST at 4. I had Ateneo at 3 as well, UST at 4. But to me, the gap was a little more narrow. And this just adds to the overall firepower. Now, I don't want to get much into detail about it because, like I did say, we did a podcast about UST's strengths and why, based on their offseason performance in Pinoy Liga, we think what they have to offer is promising this UAP season. But just quick recap again, now that Mahmood is there. Mahmood, by the way, he is kind of a throwback big man to some degree, can score in the paint, can rebound, can bang bodies if needed to, hustle plays, multiple possessions, offensive rebounds, unselfish player willing to kick it out. He was also, I believe, the captain ball of his high school team. As a senior, they made it to the state playoffs, but unfortunately just came up short. And he's not like a 20 point a game type scorer guy, but I think he can give you like maybe 12 points, 7 or 8 rebounds, a few assists, some good quality defense, and he likes playing within the system. So he's not going to be one of those guys that come in and can only shine if they are the focus of the attention. He will fit in with that system, and he will fit in with a team that's loaded. Caballero, Manaytay, Padergao, Paranada, Zain Mahmood, Renzo Competente, like I said, coming in season 88, Peter Osang, 87 as well, Ice Danting, Jeremy Robinson, Ashton Andrews, Leland Estacio. That's like a legit college basketball rotation right there. I think people are sleeping on UST. I think they're going to be super good. I think they're turning it up in the recruitment game. They're starting to, I don't want to say rival what LaSalle and UP are doing in terms of recruitment. Ateneo is doing something different. They are really focusing on their homegrown prospects in the high school ranks. They recently were able to secure the commitment of Christian Porter, UAP season 86 basketball mythical 5 for high school. He's staying as an Atenean. And of course, Jared Bahay from Ateneo Cebu. Also, some developmental players they want to see improve heading into their second season. Of course, you still have the veterans like Chris Kuhn, Sean Kitevs to lead the way. Mason Amos, I think a big season for him in season 87 will be huge as far as how far Ateneo can go. Now, Ateneo is also in well, I'm not sure how big it is. It depends if you consider coaching changes in basketball as biggest player movement as of late. But I think it's a significant development that Louie Alas, according to a source of mine, has joined the Ateneo Blue Eagles coaching staff as a senior assistant coach. Of course, Louie, good resume when it comes to college basketball, 3 NCAA basketball championships with Letran. He recently coached Phoenix in the PBA. He was an assistant coach for Alex Compton at Alaska. Great defensive mind. He's been in the college game for a while. He knows how to play this college game. He knows how to coach college teams. And immediately, of course, once the announcement of Louis becoming an Ateneo assistant coach came out, many people assumed this was a quote unquote package deal for Kiefer Alas to eventually join the Ateneo Blue Eagles as well in the collegiate ranks. Kiefer, of course, is a young phenom for De La Salle Zobel in the UAP high school tournament. He was also part of the Mythical Five, like Porter, and he still has 2 years of high school basketball left, actually. But look, we don't even know if he'll be staying in the Philippines because Kiefer was actually a guest of this podcast a few weeks ago. And if you listen to that, you know that his goal is to make it to the United States. That's where he wants to play, kind of like what Andy Gamao did. Andy's a good friend of his, and he wants to get the chance to compete against basketball players there in the States, see how far his talents can get him. So I asked the source about this. Okay, what does this mean for Kiefer now that Coach Louis is going to Ateneo? Is what people are assuming, right? That now Kiefer is going to become a Blue Eagle as well, which ironically would put him along with other Batangilas youth standouts as far as the long-term plan for Ateneo goes. And what that source told me, and by the way, this is a source I trust when it comes to this particular matter. I want to read it word for word, actually. So let me find the quote that I tweeted out here. This is what I was told. If Kiefer's plan to study in the United States does not materialize, he will definitely stay in Zobel, which means if Kiefer does not end up in the USA, well, he will play basketball for Zobel in the UAP ranks. Now, interestingly, of course, it does not reference college basketball, but then again, to be fair, also, when the kid has 2 more years of high school basketball left, it's fair to think, okay, maybe they don't want to consider college basketball just yet. What I do know in this matter is what Kiefer will decide to do will be something that he decides for himself. I don't think the family is going to tell him. I don't think his mom, his dad, or his kuya are going to tell him this is what you have to do. They're going to ask him, what do you want to do? What do you think is best for you? And I feel like that's what he's going to decide to do. And by the way, also, we shouldn't take Coach Louis Alas for granted. We should not underrate how good of a basketball mind he is. Remember, he was one of the people that some fans and some Ateneo supporters wanted to be the head coach before Todd Baldwin was hired in 2015. That was, of course, before people knew as well that Tab Baldwin was even being considered or there were discussions. This was after the time of Bo Perasol. So his resume speaks for itself. And Kiefer or no Kiefer, the addition of Louis Alas to Ateneo's staff is valuable. It only can help the team. It can only help their defensive side of performance. It can only help their overall ceiling. And the more basketball mentors you have to mentor young college players, teenagers still trying to learn the game, still trying to learn the life of being a basketball player, well, having someone like Louis Alas can be very, very helpful. So yeah, it's only February now, probably March if this podcast comes out on March 1. We're aiming, actually end of February. But We're at the tail end of February, entering March, and you know what? College basketball season cannot come soon enough. The off season cannot come soon enough. We're gonna have off season tournaments soon, like the Pinoy Liga, like Philoel Pinoy Liga Next Man Cup is going on right now. You get to see Team B players and some of the guys who didn't play a lot of minutes last season for their respective UAP teams. So a lot to be excited about, a lot to watch in the meantime. Do support the off season leagues. It's really entertaining, and if you can't get enough of college basketball, this will help you keep your excitement at bay in the meantime until the games come back at the end of the year. And what a spectacle it's going to be. It is going to be so fun. I can't wait to see how it turns out. Again, I'm really excited to see UST as a possible contender again. Like we're seeing it with their women's volleyball team right now, how competitive they are, how passionate the community can be when they're supporting a team. And I think if the men's basketball roster can do the same in season 87, well, it can really shake up the league in a way that we haven't seen in quite some time. And again, for Ateneo, the addition of Coach Louie Alas can only help. All right, let's bring on Jason and Ray to talk about Dune Part 2. But first, a quick word from our sponsor, Fitspire.
Are you ready to transform your home into a premium fitness haven? Look no further than Fitspire, your go-to destination for top-notch home gym equipment designed to take your fitness to unprecedented heights. Immerse yourself in a world of possibilities with their versatile range of premium gear, including yoga equipment for serene workouts, adjustable dumbbells and kettlebells for customized strength training, roller wheels and push-up bars to sculpt those abs and arms, jump ropes, foam rollers, and stability balls for an all-rounded workout experience, stylish and efficient cooling towels to keep you refreshed, and sport water bottles for staying hydrated in style. Fitspire's equipment is not only durable but also space-saving, allowing you to create your dream workout space without sacrificing aesthetics or functionality. Whether you're a fitness novice or a seasoned pro, their collection caters to all levels. And here's the real game changer. As a special treat for our podcast listeners, we're offering an exclusive 10% off on your purchase. Simply use the code word NAVSEffect10 upon checkout at www.sunbeamslifestyle.com. It's our way of saying thank you for choosing Fitspire. But that's not all. For an even more seamless experience, download the Sunbeams Lifestyle app, available on both iOS and Android platforms. Browse their collection, stay updated on fitness trends and exclusive deals. Transform your fitness routine from ordinary to extraordinary with Fitspire. Don't just dream about your fitness goals, achieve them in the comfort of your own home. Visit www.sunbeamslifestyle.com, use code NAVSEffect10, and let Fitspire be your fitness companion on this incredible journey.
Okay, hi everybody. Now we're back with Jason and Ray. Jason, of course, a writer for Adobo Magazine PH, and Ray with his social pages review 2 of the movie reviewers in the Philippines too, guys. You'll often see at the film premieres. And I was able to talk with each of them yesterday, Monday, I should say again, as we're recording this Tuesday night. First off, typically it's a Tuesday night. These movie premieres take place. It was a Monday for Dune, which I am thankful for because we get an extra day to kind of decompress and record a podcast about this before it releases in theaters. It releases February 28th. And by the way, to the listeners, we are doing a spoiler-free starters kit concept review of Dune 2. What
Yeah,
does that mean?
yeah.
Is that just a bunch of gibberish? Partly, yes. But also, what it means is okay, what do you need to remember before you watch Dune Part 2 in the cinemas? Do you need to go to the bathroom multiple times before you hit the seats? Absolutely, yes. Do you need to drink some coffee if you're watching a late night show? You probably have to. Yes, if you're not a coffee drinker, whatever keeps you up at night. And do you need to watch Dune Part 1 before watching Dune Part 2? Some will say definitely yes. Some might argue not necessarily, but to each his or her own. Okay, Jason Ray, before we get to our helper's kit, is helper's kit a better term? No, starter's kit. Let's stick with starter's kit, okay? What were your immediate perspectives, reactions, reviews just overall thoughts and feelings about Dune Part Two, which, by the way, some people early reviews portrayed to
Mhm.
be this absolutely amazing sequel. Did it live up to the hype? Let's start with you, Ray.
Did it live up to the hype? For me, definitely yes. For me, I think it was the best movie going experience that I've had since Top Gun. So Top Gun hasn't been released na
Absolutely. I
sobrang tagal na,
completely
di ba? I
agree with
mean,
Ray.
yeah, it's
Yeah,
like 2 years ago
tama si
maybe,
Ray.
but those experiences are kind of rare when you think about it, di ba?
Yep.
So I
Yep.
think like Top Gun, this is what blockbuster movies should aspire to be, in the sense that there's a box office appeal, but you also see a master of his craft at the peak of his powers. It kind of reminds me of how the Lord of the Rings movies work, wherein there's box office appeal and you also get a bunch of accolades. So did it live up to expectations? Definitely.
Jason, how about you?
Yeah, I completely agree with Ray regarding might be the most fun experience in a cinema since Top Gun Maverick. That plus I'd also include Mission Impossible, the most recent one, and
Yeah.
Oppenheimer with that. These are
Mm-hmm.
movies that need to be seen in the cinema on as big a screen as possible. When Denis Villeneuve did this movie, he meant it for an IMAX
Mm-hmm.
cinema. Even the sound was very absorbing. I mean, the since Naveen wasn't able to watch Dune Part One, there are parts there where the Bene Gesserit they use the voice. They call it the voice
Yeah.
to control other people, right? And you really feel it in an IMAX cinema or a Dolby
Mm-hmm.
cinema, I guess. The use of the voice when there are worm signs, when the worms are coming, you really see it and feel it in an IMAX cinema. So that makes it more absorbing, that really draws you into Arrakis. And man, that was an awesome movie, man.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's get to our starter skit. What should people know? Now, we can go from like super serious to not so serious when we start talking about this. There are aspects of the film that we can reference to that we liked without spoiling. Again, this is a spoiler-free review. So, you know what? I'm gonna start. The first thing I'm going to say is once again, Hans Zimmer just an
Mm,
incredible job
Mm,
for the composition of this
agreed.
movie. I mean, there are some parts where you don't need lines, you don't need dialogue to emphasize the
mhm.
importance of a scene, the gravitas of a moment, but you sure as hell need good music, right? You
Yeah.
need
Mhm.
that sound to accompany it, to take you through that wave of sentiments that you want the audience to have, the viewer to experience, to feel, to understand the overall complexity and major picture of literally the picture, right? And I felt once again Hans Zimmer, incredible job.
Yeah. Hans Zimmer, in addition to what you just said, Naveen, no, I'm a fan of Hans Zimmer, particularly the way he did this for movies like Man of Steel and Gladiator. Those are some of the most standout Hans Zimmer moments that I can recall, and I love those movies as well. So yeah, I totally agree with you.
Yeah, just to
Fantastic.
add to that, yung Hans Zimmer score kasi for me, it doesn't only heighten the emotions. For me, it also transports you to a different world, di ba?
Mm,
So
Mm,
along with
mm,
the cinematography and the set design, and along
yeah,
with that Hans Zimmer score, you really feel immersed that like one senior in Arrakis and then another senior in the
yeah,
Hakonnen
GD
world with the
Prime, yeah,
black sun, di ba?
yeah,
yeah, for sure. And those are the little moments that could really connect scenes together and avoid a movie that's almost 3 hours long from feeling too dull. Something
Mm.
simple like the
mm,
music, right? Okay, Ray, what's number one on your starter skit?
Okay, the number one on my starter kit. Well, like you mentioned, you have to go to the bathroom. Definitely. Kasi ako parang halfway through the movie, I really badly needed to go. But parang I was thinking, is the upcoming scene something I could miss? Parang wala eh. So
mm.
you really have to be there to experience the whole thing. But all jokes aside, I think if you're going into this, actually I just noticed yung background ni Jason. Gandang ano ah.
And then
Pero Tatooine yan, ah. Tatooine yan.
Tatooine. Kaya
Tatooine.
nga, Tatooine nga. Gandang callback nga. So anyway, so if you're obviously a fan of sci-fi, Star Wars, definitely this movie is for you. Parang it's like Star Wars for adults, di ba? But
Mm.
what it reminds me of also is, in terms of yung political backstabbing and wheeling and dealing, Game of Thrones. So if you're a
Yeah.
fan of Game of
Oh.
Thrones, this has that. And if you're, kasi ako, I like old movies as well. So I think this movie borrows heavily from Lawrence of Arabia.
Oh,
So
David Lean.
yeah, so for me it's kind of like Lawrence of Arabia in space. Parang yung political undertones niya, yung parang yung themes niya of imperialism, the messianic complex of the character, yung internal conflict of the character. So as a fan of both Game of Thrones and Lawrence of
Great
Arabia,
Peter
I re-
O'Toole.
yes, I really enjoyed Dune because of those factors.
Nice, nice, nice. How about you, Jason? What's number one on your list?
I guess number one on my list is it would really help if you have like some basic knowledge of Dune. I know Naveen, you went in, you hadn't seen the first movie. That's why we chatted before the film, and you're like, "Can you give me what do I need to know?" So we went through it quickly, diba? It it really helped me that I rewatched Dune Part One a couple of days ago.
Yeah.
Just before, just to get the refresher because it's been a couple of years since that movie. But thankfully, it's on both Netflix and HBO Go, so I rewatched it. And funnily enough, a couple of weeks back, I watched the original Dune movie from 1984, directed by David Lynch. So it really allowed me to compare. This is just my suggestion for anybody who wants to have a more immersive experience comparing David Lynch with Denis Villeneuve because they're completely different types of filmmakers. And that film from 85 feels 84 feels very dated compared to this one. There are some things that David Lynch did there that Villeneuve stayed far away from, and it works better, of course, for Villeneuve because the effects are better, but the writing is significantly better now. So I think a cursory knowledge of what Dune is all about would really help. You can still go in blind and enjoy yourself as Naveen did,
Mm-hmm.
but for me, seeing Dune Part One as well as Dune from 1984 made me even more ecstatic about Dune Part Two. It completed an experience for me.
Yeah, I went in there I had the opportunity to watch Dune Part 1 a night a night before Doom Part 2, and I chose not to in part because one, I read some of the early reviews, and I just kind of wanted to go into that Dune Part 2 film with a fresh mindset of, okay, let's see what it's about. Let's see if the story holds up, if the plot holds up, if the hype holds up without having preconceived notions of what's supposed to be a continuation. And that made me enjoy it more, so much so that, like I told you guys before we started recording this, now I'm a little hesitant to watch part one because, okay, what if it doesn't live up to it? Right? But I think I definitely will. One, because the story is interesting, and two, because it ties into my next point, which I think I'm not sure if some people might agree completely with this because some might already consider him an A-lister. But I just thought the performance of Timothée Chalamet as Paul Atreides was
Yeah,
absolutely fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
The
yeah.
Again, we don't want to spoil too much with what happens, but the flow of the character, the progression, the development, the story, how we see him grow, how we see him just suddenly, go from one mindset to the next and find a
Lisan Al
way
Gaib!
to
Lisan Al
portray
Gaib!
to portray all that emotions in certain scenes again without speaking, aided by the composition, yes, for sure. But I feel like you still need a good anchor of an actor to hold that and put it all together,
Yeah.
and he was exceptional.
Actually, that's one of the reasons why I think you have to see the first movie. Kasi the contrast between parang
Yeah.
his art, kitang-kita mo how different he is from the first movie and the third act of the second movie.
Mm-mm.
So
It will complete your experience,
yes,
Naveen. If you
oo.
see the first, you'll see the progression of the character, as
Yes,
Yes,
Ray's been
yes.
exactly.
saying.
Oo. Oo. Tapos yung relationship niya to his house, 'di ba? To his dad,
Yeah.
that is only hinted at in the second film. You see that a lot in the first film. So
Yeah.
that's where he's coming from, his motivations, 'di ba? His loyalty to his house, yung conflict between the loyalty to his house and the Arrakis, the Fremen people.
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
As well as, how he was trained by both Gurney Halleck and Duncan Idaho.
Exactly.
We only see Gurney, of course, in the second film because Duncan, something already happened to him. But, you
Mhm.
know, um, those all helped mold Paul into what he would become in Dune Part Two.
Yeah, and what he is in that third act is just to some degree, it's almost like you expected it to happen because you know, the breadcrumbs are there, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
But what he just transforms into, I don't think it's as important as the question is, okay, how does he transform into this? And that's where tracking that journey, particularly for Dune Part 2, in my perspective, that's where the real interest was when it came to his character. But okay, now let's go to Ray. Ray, what's your second starter skit item?
Second starter kit item. Okay. I think it also helps if you've seen other Denis Villeneuve movies. Specifically,
He stole my item. Vin. He stole my item. That was mine too.
you can just piggyback on what I said.
Yeah, that's
Parang,
true.
especially if you saw Blade Runner, which didn't do well in the box office, pero critically, I think a lot of people liked it. Para siyang you can see also the growth of Denis Villeneuve as a filmmaker from, I think his first sci-fi, if you don't include Enemy with Jake Gyllenhaal, I think is Arrival and then Blade Runner. You see his
Yeah.
growth as a filmmaker. Parang he's more confident now. His skills have improved. Parang he knows all the weapons at his disposal. So that's something that's interesting to see.
Okay, okay. I might have to. I also haven't seen Sicario yet. That's what
Yeah,
I
oh, that's
yeah,
another good movie. Yeah.
exactly. I don't know. The recent movies have been a little violent. I might need some blockbuster comedies to hit the screen soon.
Mm,
But based from the trailers we saw yesterday, parang the next few movies seem a little bit wild as well. I mean,
yeah.
that Godzilla versus Kong trailer though, that looked
Well,
enticing.
if you can get to a cinema this week, Naveen, and watch Poor Things, that's really good.
Yeah, that's
Oh,
crazy.
okay.
Mm,
It's
I might consider
really
that.
good.
I might
mm,
consider that. I need to get on Shogun. Okay, but before I know that's contrary to what I just said about what I should not watch. I need to like go to sleep without like being like, oh, I'm gonna dream about like wars and planets exploding tonight. But okay, Jason, your second item on your starter kit.
Yeah, I'll only be able to echo what Ray just said because out of the Villeneuve filmography, I've only been able to watch Arrival and Blade Runner 2049. And I really like those movies. Unfortunately, I still haven't seen Sicario, though I really should. So if you have some experience watching those films of Villeneuve, you'll see this is a guy who knows how to do
mm,
sci-fi.
mm,
Christopher Nolan has already praised Dune Part Two, as one of the great sci-fi films of all time, and you can see his development. I mean, Arrival, that's a great movie, also.
yeah. Mm,
With those cephalopod, those aliens, diba, the communicating with Jessica Chastain. Um, though those were That's a completely different take on an alien encounter, or it's not an
mm,
alien invasion, right? And Blade Runner 2049, of course, it's a sequel to the original Blade Runner from 1982 by Ridley Scott, and nobody thought anybody could do a successful sequel to
mhm,
Blade Runner after so long. But Villeneuve did. He completed the story of the replicants. So that also shows that he can do franchises.
yeah.
Because Blade Runner is an established sci-fi franchise from 1982, and it's had all these accolades over the decades. I think that allowed him to grab the director's chair for Dune, and he was able to do these two films so well. And I don't think it's spoiling to say that the ending of part two is kind of open ended. So there might
Mhm,
be even a third,
mhm,
because the first Dune book of Frank Herbert doesn't quite end like this, of Dune
mhm,
Part Two. So there's that.
Interesting, interesting. Yeah, you did say there are five Dune books, right? And the first book,
Six,
six
actually
rather,
six.
and the first Dune book is covered by part one and part two in terms of the movie. So I haven't even got to book two yet, technically.
Yeah, yeah.
Dang. books, movies. How do we consume all this content that's out there in the world right now? I mean, is
Dude,
there
like we were talking about yesterday before the film started, we're never gonna be able to complete all of them, man. They're out
shit?
there.
Yeah.
We're trying to catch up. We're trying to catch up so that we won't be spoiled on social media. But it's a chore to try and catch up. So we might as well just watch what and read what we can and enjoy what and read what we can because we're
Yeah.
never gonna be able to consume everything.
I know. Listen, I'm gonna stop like using my phone during those like few minutes when I'm like waiting in line or when I'm supposed to be, waiting for the elevator to arrive or like I'm waiting for my coffee and just bring a book. And even if I read
Yeah,
like
man.
2 pages, I'm like, okay, that's good. That's better than staring at the screen. But
Guys,
no.
that's how I read Dune, the first Dune book in 2018, 2019. I bought the six books. Then
Okay.
because at that point Dune was just a rumor or I heard that it was going to start. So I figured I might as well start reading it. And I was reading it before UAP games, I'd park early, I'd be at a coffee shop and I'd read a couple of pages or maybe a chapter or two if I could. And that's how I was able to get through Frank Herbert's classic from
Jason, I have a
1965.
question for you.
Oh,
Since you read the books, how did you take the twists of the movie? Kasi ako, I was surprised. I didn't
mm,
read the books, so yung reveals niya, parang wow,
oh.
medyo may ganung ano ako eh. So, how did you take it?
There were some parts na nagulat pa ako, Ray. Siguro kasi medyo matagal na rin since I
Yeah.
read the book. Well, I only read the first book. I
Mm-hmm.
read it 2018, 2019 pa. So, since then, as we were talking about just now, ang
Yeah.
dami ko pang binasa and pinanood since. So, your
Yeah.
brain can only hold so
Yeah.
much information that I've lost a lot of brain matter about Dune. But again, thankfully, I was able to rewatch that 84 Dune. So I was prepared for a couple of big battles. I was expecting some other ending because that's how David Lynch did his, which is different here, which is pleasantly surprising to me because I like how Dune Part 2 ends more. So yun, there were several twists that I was surprised by. There was a revelation that I'd completely forgotten. But
Mm-hmm.
when nung sinabi, and I'm not gonna spoil it here, I was like, oh yeah. Ganun ako when I heard it last night. Yun.
There's a lot to be excited, I think, with this series moving forward. And I can't wait to like see what else. Like I'm tempted to just read everything now because I kind of want to know more about what
Mm,
transpires, but I'm gonna try to be patient. I'm gonna try to pace myself. After all, my backlog has like what, a million things waiting to be played. Okay,
yeah.
going back to the starter kit item. My third one would be now. Some people might consider this a spoiler, but I gotta tease a little bit of stuff, right? There is a certain battle scene, shocker, wow, in the third act, which I think you guys know what I'm talking about. And after
Yeah.
people watch
Mm-hmm.
this film, they're gonna know what I'm talking about. The choreography,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
the surprise factor, the
Lighting,
Jesus, yeah,
the framing.
the 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 fact that there is emotional weight to it because of what had just transpired beforehand. And look, when you go to a movie, sometimes it's as simple as good guy versus bad guy, right? And
Mm-hmm.
this goes beyond just Dune. And most of the time, we know, okay, the good guy, which I guess in this case, you might not be 100% certain, which
Mm,
makes the movie extra interesting, right? But then,
yeah.
even if you're like, okay, the good guy is going to beat the bad guy, you're like, if I know the result, well, how do I make it interesting enough for the viewer where getting to that result still brings that wow,
Mm,
shock factor. And take note, this is a nearly 3 hour movie, so everything's leading
mm.
up to, this mano a mano, right? So to
When you're
say,
already
right?
there, when you're already at that part, Naveen, it doesn't let go anymore. Diba? It
Yeah,
builds and
Mm-hmm.
builds and builds. And
yeah, yeah,
probably the last hour or so, it just rolls.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to stand up and go to the CR anymore because it's
exactly.
building.
It's like here we go. Yeah. It's like here we
Yeah.
go. It's like okay, what if they showed what the war was at Oppenheimer after they developed the bomb. Yeah, well Dune kind of shows that to some degree, right? Then again, it did happen in real life, the Oppenheimer stuff. So I think some people might have gotten to see it, and well, that's why we have the history books to learn more about that. But in this sci-fi fictional world where everything's leading up to this climax, right? Like
Yeah,
most great films. And then on top of the climax, you have the icing on the cake. And then while I'm watching them go at it, I'm just like, holy crap. The
yeah.
amount of training required to make this
Mhm.
certain scene happen, you just
Mm.
feel like this certain amount of respect for the workmanship that goes behind the scenes to delivering cinema like this.
Mhm.
Yeah, the production design was amazing, man. And again, I don't want to keep going back to the 84 movie, but the way that was filmed by Lynch compared to what Villeneuve did. The Lynch thing was over the top. Sting's fade is a different kind of villain, louder, more braggadocious, real arrogant, while Austin Butler is very different.
Mhm.
And even the scenes leading up to it, the call to war, it's very different in the old movie and this. So this choosing to do it with the sand and everything around makes it more believable.
Exactly.
Makes you really feel like you're on another planet that's
Mhm.
surrounded by nothing but desert. I didn't get that much of a feel with the Lynch film.
Mhm.
Yeah, of course, there's sand, but not as much as this movie. There's just so much sand, it never ends. It's the kind of film where we're all familiar with Star Wars here, where Anakin Skywalker would be really pissed because he hates sand so much.
Actually, another low-key impressive thing about the movie for me is how I was convinced that Timothy Chalamet can be an action hero, an action star.
Mm,
Kasi when you
mm.
think about Timothy Chalamet, action movies isn't the first thing you'd consider him for.
Willy Wonka.
Yeah, exactly, 'di ba? Pero yun nga, like you said, dun sa epic climax, he's very convincing, 'di ba? So it has to do with, of course, his performance, but it's also all the technical stuff, the framing, 'di ba? How it was shot, how it was lighted, everything.
The
So
hair.
the hair,
The
yeah.
hair. Listen, I may or may not be trying to do something similar with my hair. We'll see how much I fail in a few weeks. Okay, wait, Ray, what's your third item on the starter skit?
Okay, my third item. I don't know how to frame this, no. Pero one thing about the movie that I'm really impressed with, the supporting cast. So si Javier
Yeah.
Bardem, Rebecca Ferguson, Austin Butler. So if you've seen a lot of their movies before, you already know that they're very impressive, they're very talented. But seeing them all together in a movie such as this, a scale such as this, it's really impressive how parang, especially for Javier Bardem, para sa akin, parang he almost stole the show eh.
Yeah.
So, parang everyone was just at the top of their game. It's like a championship team where everyone knew their roles, 'di ba? Playing well
Even Charlotte
together.
Rampling, who's the
And
Reverend
then Charlotte
Mother,
Rampling,
she's such a
exactly, yeah.
veteran actress, but she was so good here.
Exactly, oh.
She
Actually,
was
the one,
very subdued in part
yeah.
one, but here she's
Mm,
more active, and the clash of her, in the background and suddenly coming to the
mm.
foreground because she's got a conflict with Lady Jessica. It's so good.
Actually, the one thing I was worried about was the Emperor. I don't think it's a spoiler naman, 'di ba? Parang nasa ano naman 'yun. Who
Yeah.
The
played the
fourth,
Emperor, 'di ba? Si
yeah.
Christopher Walken. So, when he was delivering the lines the first time, I thought parang it's gonna be an SNL sketch of Christopher Walken, 'di ba?
Mark
Pero
Campbell.
thankfully naman, 'di ba? Thankfully naman he was able to pull it off.
Yeah, I was actually listening to that because he's got a very New York accent, diba? And Christopher
Yeah.
Walken, he talks like Christopher Walken does. So you kind of heard it. But at the
Yeah.
same time, he's so serious that okay, okay,
Mm,
medyo mabigat tong scene na to. Hindi
yeah.
ka dapat matawa dito, ganyan. Meant to have him there and his daughter is Florence Pugh, the Princess
Oh
Irulan.
yeah. Who I
Parang
thought
Yeah.
was low key pretty good in this movie also.
Mhm. Mhm.
guys,
Yeah.
She
in that 84 film, in that 84 film, the movie starts off with narration by Princess Irulan, who was Virginia Madsen. Parang, huh? Ganon. So here, I think it was kind of
Mm,
Villeneuve's attempt at kind of doing a bit like that with the narration while she's writing. Well, she's chronicling everything at the start. But I like her performance way more than Virginia Madsen. She was more active here, si Florence Pugh.
Did you guys like Austin Butler's performance?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
He did not look like Elvis anymore.
oh, yeah, yeah. And even the accent is gone, so that's good.
Yeah, he sounded like Stellan Skarsgård. He sounded like
Yeah,
the Baron
exactly.
Har.
Yeah.
All right, Jason, what's your final item on your starter kit?
Because I was thinking about this kanina, and parang yun nga, it's kind of been overlapping. We've kind of been mentioning it also. Maybe, you have to come into this movie where your eyes are wide open and you're also experiencing everything. Because if you watch Dune Part One, you notice that Villeneuve had a very conscious effort to make things feel a bit Middle Eastern on Arrakis. The
Mm,
music, the sounds there, the culture, the Fremen, they look a bit, like Middle Eastern, but at the same time, there are black characters who are among the Fremen. So that shines through even more in Part Two. So we're so aware now of films that are kind of forcing us to, like, reverse whitewashing of some
mhm,
characters before, like some characters who were white in source materials are suddenly multicultural. In Dune it works,
mhm,
particularly in the case of Stilgar, who's Javier Bardem. If in the case of Zendaya, si Chani. In the first movie everybody was white, and here it's multiracial, but it works. It doesn't feel forced.
mhm,
I think that keeping your eyes open that way. Again, sorry if I'm echoing what I said earlier about comparing the previous generations Dune to this. This is a masterpiece by Villeneuve as far as making it a more global feel, a more interracial story without insulting what Frank Herbert did in the 60s. It feels organic. It doesn't feel forced at all. So, yeah.
Absolutely. I agree with you 100%. Now we're going to take a quick break first, a word from our sponsor, Get Blued, and then when you guys come back, you'll hear us riding sandworms. Attention all Ateneo supporters and fashion enthusiasts. Get ready to elevate your game day style with Get Blued's latest masterpiece, the all-new hoodies. These aren't just any ordinary hoodies. They're the best Get Blued has ever come out with. Crafted with precision and passion, each hoodie is a testament to their commitment to quality and style. And guess what? They come in 3 stunning colors: cream, royal blue, and navy blue. But wait, there's more. The new hoodie features textured and embroidered patches on premium peak fabric, ensuring a luxurious and comfortable feel like no other. It's the perfect blend of style and comfort, making it an absolute must-have for the remainder of UAP Season 86. But here's the best part. You can own this game day essential for only 2,500 pesos each. That's right, premium quality at a great price. But remember, true fans always buy original. Avoid imitations and support the Ateneo varsity teams in style by purchasing from Get Blued's official stores. With Get Blued, you're not just buying a hoodie, you're investing in the pride and tradition of the blue and white. Don't miss out on the opportunity to stand out in the crowd and show your unwavering support for the Ateneo varsity teams. Get your hands on the new hoodies today and let your Blue Eagle pride soar to new heights. Visit Get Blued's official stores to secure your hoodies now. Hurry! Quantities are limited. Okay, we're now back. Yeah, we're still laughing about that sandworm thing because imagine trying to actually like control one and ride it. I think it would be like the most fearsome yet also exhilarating moment of my life.
Actually, I have a question about that. I don't know if it's approaching spoiler territory, but
Go.
how do they get on the sandworm as a group? And
Um,
how do they get off?
I think there's an
I don't
app
know how they got
where you
off.
put your name and you schedule it.
There's an app. Kasi to get on is like
There's
a
an app.
rodeo, di ba? Parang it's very, very
Yeah,
intense. How do you get on
yeah.
as a group?
Di ko
um,
alam. Kasi in the first film, they made a whole thing about how Kyle MacLachlan's Paul got on the sandworm. Parang kita mo tuloy how bad the effects were in the 80s eh. Here,
Mm.
it felt more realistic. It felt like, oh, pwede to. This could happen.
Oh.
Ganyan.
maybe they all dance to a certain step
Rhythm.
like they do in the
That's
sands,
it. Eh.
and
That's the
then
way they walk it in order to avoid
Mm.
the sandworms, the weird walking. Yeah.
oh my God. Can I just say that, there were a lot of like water of life moments in this part two,
Mm.
right? But that one
Yeah.
certain scene where, they show almost like how to make it happen. Now I don't want to spoil too
Ah.
much, right? But then I
Yeah.
was
Uh-huh.
like, whoa, okay, low key,
Yeah.
that's a pretty good scene, you know?
Yeah,
Mm.
man.
Oh my gosh. Okay, well, let's give our grades. Jason, you go first. Dune Part Two, out of a 10. What's your ranking?
I'll give this an 8.5.
Oh,
Close to a 9 already, but yeah, 8.5 is pretty high as far as I'm concerned. It's not perfect by any means. There are parts a bit early and they're a bit dragging, but when the action picks up, it does not let go. I was saying it earlier. When it's on the way to the climax, it just builds and builds and builds until the very end. So I think I'm giving it a solid 8.5.
that's what she said. All right. I am going to give it a 9 out of 10. Production scale, awesome. Story, awesome. Pacing for a long movie, really good because I didn't feel like it was 2 hours, 45 minutes by the end of it. What else? Actors, actresses, awesome. Zendaya was great, in my opinion. Of course, the main characters as well. We already talked about Austin Butler, Timothy Chalamet, Florence as Princess Irulan, Bautista, we haven't even mentioned him. I think Walken is the Emperor,
Mm.
and Stellan, and even the one cameo. Well, her name's in Wikipedia, so technically we can say it, but I'm not going to say it. But that one cameo in a certain
Yeah.
vision, obviously, it was just nice to see people almost like an all-star cast in a film,
Mhm.
right? So I thought that added to it too because it didn't feel like anyone was stepping on each other's toes almost. I never
Mm.
really felt like, okay, this A-lister is getting way more screen time and probably he deserves than the other A-lister. It's almost like they found a way to balance that. And that's
Yeah.
not easy, in my opinion. We've seen so many other films. I mean, we just kind of saw it with Argyle, right? And we kind of had similar
Yeah.
sentiments about it. How you're
Mm.
gonna add Dua Lipa to all the material, the marketing material, and then you get to the movie and you're like, okay, her stint
She's
there,
done.
she's had songs longer than her stint in the movie. I mean, I I don't know that for a fact. Someone will have to research that, but it felt that way, right? And then when you go to a film with an all-star cast and you kind of feel that way after, you're like, eh. But in Dune Part Two, I didn't feel that way, so I give them a plus in that regard. And I give them a plus in the regard too that I came in without really any allegiance to the books, to the 1984 movie, or even to part one of this film, and they got me hooked. They got me hooked. Now, I'm not gonna agree with a certain review I saw online that said Dune Part Two is Empire Strikes Back level when it comes to being a sequel. Again, I haven't watched Dune Part One, but then if that's
Mm.
the bar you're racing it to, I'm not so certain even as a standalone film, it doesn't touch that level of Empire Strikes Back. But you know what? It's still a solid 9 out of 10 for me.
Okay.
Ray, how about
Okay.
for you?
I think I have to let it simmer and rewatch the movie. Kasi I'm guessing if I rewatch it, I'll probably spot something. But as of this recording, for me, it's a 10. So,
Oh,
yeah.
Oh.
It's probably a 9.5. Pero kasi for me, if it's a 9.5, maybe I'm nitpicking. So, I'll give it the nudge towards a 10. I think this is the type of movie that only proves why the cinema going experience is still
then the
better
streaming.
and than the streaming. Even though
Yeah.
streaming is
Yeah.
convenient, di ba? Iba pa din eh. And I can only imagine someone who's seeing this in the cinema probably falling in love with movies
Mm,
after
Yeah.
after seeing this. Just like it was for me when I was a kid, parang ganun. So for me, I think that has that effect. And kasi ako, one of the criticisms, I enjoyed the first movie, but one of the criticisms I have of the first movie is the ending wasn't satisfying. So
Mm.
it's really ano siya eh, ano ba tawag? Bitin, basically bitin.
Yeah.
So the second film, it hints at a future movie that may or may not come. But
But
even if
concludes properly, diba?
yeah, it concludes
Yes.
properly, even if they don't have that, parang
Yeah,
I can already imagine what's gonna happen. In my mind, the story is finished. Parang ganun.
yeah.
So that's what I
Yeah.
love about it.
Let me ask you guys something. Did you guys expect that emotional certain scene at the end that I'm trying to right before the ending and right before that big fight we're talking about? Did you guys expect that?
Which one?
It's
The
hard to. Okay, we'll have to talk about that off the camera because we'll be spoiling it. So again, to recap, Ray gives it a 10, Jason an 8.5. I gave it a 9. We forgot to mention Josh Brolin as well. At least did
yeah.
we?
Yeah. Gurney Halleck.
Man, great performance. The film just changed just once he's in the screen. He just added
Mm.
a different
Mm.
dynamic to it that I thought was very important. But
And I was
overall,
saying, guys, in the 84 movie, Gurney Halleck was played by Patrick Stewart. So he had
mm,
giant shoes to fill.
Oh, yeah.
But his performance as Gurney was completely different from how
Oh,
Captain Picard, after
yes.
how Professor Xavier did it. But it still works. Yeah.
definitely different from what we saw out of Thanos as well. I'm gonna just put that out there. Mention that casually. All right, before we call this podcast a wrap, Jason, Ray, why don't you share some of the shows and movies you guys have been watching? Ray, maybe what you have planned for your reviews coming up. Jason, any recommendations?
Okay, for TV shows, I started getting into Yellowstone. So I'm a bit late sa Yellowstone kasi it's been out for like a couple of seasons. But so far, I'm enjoying it. It's like Succession mixed with Godfather with mixed with cowboys, basically. So it's
Interesting.
a bit folky at times, bit melodramatic, but okay siya. Okay naman siya for me. And then for movies, I've been trying to finish all the Oscar nominated films.
Yeah.
So
Same with you.
it's a
Same
bit
here.
hard kasi they're not all available here, streaming or in the cinemas. But
Yeah.
hopefully I can get to that before the Oscars come.
Have you finished Last Airbender already?
Yeah, yeah. I finished Last Airbender.
What did you think?
Okay, I don't have any background knowledge of the source material, so I enjoyed it, but it has its flaws. If we want to get into it, siguro yung lead basically si Ang is okay. He's a kid, so I give him a pass. But the two other leads, Katara and Sokka, I think, yeah, the
Yeah.
acting wasn't so good.
Yeah, I'm not yet done. I'm 2 episodes away from finishing. There's some acting that I thought left a little bit to be desired. Overall, I've
Mhm.
enjoyed it so far. I really like Uncle Iroh scenes. I really do.
Mhm, yeah.
So far,
Mhm.
it's just it adds a heart to the show. Jason, what have you been watching?
Okay. I binged on House of Ninjas last week. That is awesome. That
Okay.
is just awesome. It felt like an anime series come to life. It's all in Japanese, subtitles, everything, but that's what a fun show. That's just a fun show on Netflix. So I finished that. I watched the first 2 episodes of Shogun today. It dropped on Disney Plus, and the production value on that is so high. They spent a lot of money on this movie. The story is great. I don't remember the 1980 miniseries starring Richard Chamberlain. I'm aware of the novel it was based on, written by James Clavell, but I basically entered this with no knowledge at all, zero, and I love it. Hiroyuki Sanada as the lead, with Anna Sawai from Monarch. She's also here, and wow, that's great. It's going to be 10 episodes, but the first two are now on Disney Plus. So I watched that. Also, well, I finished True Detective Night Country last week. That was great too. Best season since the first season because,
Mhm.
well, it's Jodie Foster. That's why it's great.
Oo.
So there, I finished that. And I'm watching the second season of Tokyo Vice now, also on HBO Go.
Mhm. Is it
True
done
Detective
or
and
is it still
yeah,
ongoing?
yeah, it's ongoing. Tokyo Vice, I think 4 episodes have dropped on HBO Go,
Okay.
so that's a great show. And I'm also watching The New Look, which is a story about Christian Dior and Coco Chanel in in the development of French fashion. But in the first 3 episodes that I've seen, there's hardly anything about fashion. It's all about World War II, and I love war movies and shows about the French resistance during the time that Germany was occupying them. So galing. So there. And on the anime side, again, I'm still in the last few episodes of Free Ren, they're dropping. I think there are three or four to go for Free Ren. Apothecary Diaries is ongoing, and Solo Leveling is also ongoing. So those are the anime that I've been watching. So yeah, I watch too much shit, guys.
No, that's all good. Trust me, I'm a little bit envious. I wish I could watch so much shit too. Maybe I kind of do. Maybe I watch too much shit. All right, we need to stop using the word shit because these are some great works. Anyway,
Yeah.
Jason, Ray, really appreciate you guys joining me for another late night pod. Nice seeing you both last night at the premiere. What's going to be next? Bob Marley ba? I think it might be the Bob
Marnie na
Marley
ba?
film, right?
Oh, Godzilla -1 na ba?
I don't think there is there a release date for that. Parang wala eh.
It released in the States already, right? I think it's
Oo nga
even
eh.
Yeah,
Wala
doing
pa
last
akong
year
basta eh.
pa.
Yeah.
yeah. Last year, or last month? I think Feb, right?
Last year pa eh.
Last year, I think last year.
Wow,
Last year
wow,
pa sa
wow.
States, man.
Mm.
And there are no what do we call them? Torrents that are clearing it. So
Hi. Oh, you said a word that must
yun.
not be said.
Yeah,
um,
yeah, yun.
yun. No, no, no. I'd like to watch that. I'm a Bob Marley fan. I'm a fan of the
Fun to sing Bob Marley
genre.
songs at KTV, guys. It's fun to sing those songs for karaoke.
Fun of the lifestyle, peace, love, harmony to everyone.
Yeah.
I would love to watch a movie for sure. And if there is a screening for it, I cannot wait. But also, where are the other films coming out soon? When's Planet
Godzilla
of the
Kong na.
Apes coming out?
Yeah. Godzilla Kong, another monkey movie.
Godzilla po. Mm.
Oh my god. I mean, I saw the trailer of that, but we all saw it yesterday before Dune.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah, I
So
did.
they turned King Kong into Iron Man?
Parang
Well,
ganun
his
eh, no?
arm. His
Oo.
arm.
Parang
Seems
naka-Hulkbuster armor eh.
Di ba? Hulkbuster armor. Eh. Oh.
Oh my god. Eventually they'll have sandworms talking in the movies as well. Like, hey, what's up? All right. Appreciate you guys really. Thanks for your time. Thanks to all the listeners. Thanks to all the viewers. We'll catch you all in the next episodes. Peace.